Good morning, this is Booklets with its Hindu editorial discussion on 21st March 2019. So we are going to discuss today's article to precisely make you prepare for the prelims cum mains preparation. So the first article we are going to discuss is about the important article, which is a short history of data. This is about the history related to data collection, that is the surveys which are done in India. So first of all, we are going to say about the writer introduces that the two independent members of the National Statistical Commission resigned in protest over alleged suppression of the economic data by the government. The government suppressed the data, so the two people from the National Statistical Commission resigned it. Starting from that, he is going into the history, the main history of this survey which is done today also, which is stopped by many other countries, but India still continues these kind of surveys. While declining data quality has been an issue, so the birth of the new nation, that is post independence, led to an explosion of national statistics based on the need to the plan economy through the 5-year plans. As you all know that the 5-year plans emerged, so they needed a strategic plan oriented data to in order to plan for the planning and to implement it too. So these years would see the establishment of the office of the statistical advisor to the government, biannual national sample surveys, central statistical organization, that is the CSO, and the national income committees that made the estimate similar to GDP measurements. So these all bodies were made post independence due to the need of making these surveys for the preparing of the 5-year plans. So the moving spirit behind these developments were the Prasanta Chandra Mahalanobis, PC Mahalanobis, as everybody knows who it is. That is, he with Jawaharlal Nehru was formulated for the second 5-year plan, whom Jawaharlal Nehru described as the presiding genius of statistics in India. He also has founded in 1931 Indian Statistical Institute. The professor as Mahalanobis was known to associate was involved in discussions, that is in the UN Statistical Commission in New York. In this body, that is the UN Statistical Commission headquartered at New York, he was voted as chairperson for several times during the 1950s. So he is the main architect or the main brain behind PC Mahalanobis, behind these type of statistics or surveys which are done in India, and the writer is going throughout in the world too, because the world too has known about the importance of surveying by these personalities, which is going to be said by the article. As a pioneer in emerging field of large scale sample surveys, he would also be the force behind creating UN sub-commission on statistical sampling. It is UN Statistical Commission was there, and he was chairman too at many times, and UN Sub-Commission on Statistical Sampling in 1947. He was the brain, that is emerging field, that is he was the child. He was also involved in formation of this UN sub-commission, co-authoring the textbook on the subject in 1950. So by the middle of 20th century, Indian Statistical Institute was globally recognized as a leader in field of sample surveys. So the Indian Statistical Institute was globally recognized, and this institute's fingerprints is also there in the creation of India's National Income Committee, Central Statistical Organization (CSO), that is International Statistical Education Center in Calcutta, and National Sample Survey. Nobel Prize winner August Dayton, if you can remember and quote this, but the name, if you can remember, it's nice for the exam point of view. But if you say also the former Nobel Prize winner has also said that the world's first system of household surveys to apply the principles of random sampling has been done. World's first system of household surveys to apply the principle of random sampling is done by India. So the results of national sample survey offered high definition snapshots, that is casting light on cost of living, crop estimates, household consumption, industry trade and land holding patterns. So because they, as you all, some may have thinking why these surveys and all. If you know about the data, you can plan about the data too. That is, if you know about the past, you can know, prepare for the future. That is what this data also gives us. The Planning Commission beginning in 1962 used the data national sample survey generated by its household surveys to craft the country's poverty line. The poverty line was done by this national sample survey, and the Planning Commission did that. India was a forerunner in this regard. This example you can even quote in case of surveying. States also developed its own poverty line 3 years later. So it's also said that we are well ahead in sampling even in case of US. So for example, this is for the prelims point of view. Living standard measurement study surveys is conducted by the World Bank, can trace their lineage back to the work of Indian statisticians. So Indian statisticians were also behind the work in living standard measurement study prepared by World Bank. This distinguished history, which India can claim with pride, makes the recent undermining of the credibility of our statistical output especially regrettable. So by this point you can say that the recent crimes, the recent allegations on the credibility of our statistical output, the recent news reports and all, just makes it these all regrettable in case, because we have a distinguished history in case of this statistics. So because of that, because of this distinguished history, these all allegations are all regrettable case. We can however ensure that when we look back on it several years from now, it represents an anomaly rather than a lasting. So this case of allegations and all, it becomes an anomaly rather than a lasting irreparable loss of institutional credibility. So it also becomes a irreparable if this continues. That's also remembered by the writer. So this is a balanced point of view in case of our statistical survey history. So this you can write in case of any questions asked by in case of surveys. So another next article is reality of impunity, rhetoric of human rights. This is a case in related to the use of torture in India. So the writer starts with the many incidents, recent incident too, and he gives about the data on the recent incidents which are going on in the case of torture related to the police and to the civic societies too. So that all are not needed. If any case of torture question comes, we can also write. But the end, it is the useful thing in case of question answers. Thus, the Kerala Police Act puts the onus on all police officers to report any physical torture. On all police officers to report any physical torture they know of. Prisons in Telangana refuse to admit people brought into judicial custody if they appear injured. So the prison in Telangana also does that. So these are some reforms against torture by some states. Such persons are sent back to hospitals, forcing them injuries to be properly recorded. So Telangana ensures that, and the Kerala Police Act also ensures these all things. So India signed the UN Convention against Torture in 1997. But despite repealed domestic and international recommendations to ratify it, there has been no attempt to create a specific and comprehensive torture prevention law. So the signing has been done, but there has not been a specific law against with the related to the torture. So until we have such a law, Indians must accept the active tolerance of torture. So the active tolerance against torture and torture as a thing can be reformed as strong legal measures are done and political will and other any knowledgeable facts too. So we will also discuss it in detail post prelims. So don't worry about that. So there are another articles too. There are dollar rupee swap which has done recently by the RBI, which is of great help, and it can create good credibility in the monetary structure too, has been discussed by the article. But so that is not much of importance, but I just made you remember about these all things. And there is a fight against terrorism article, and that we have discussed many times too. And this war or peace are less chances are there to them to ask to. So and but another article, there is an important article related to global environmental outlook, which we have discussed earlier too by UNEP, and report by UNEP, and the writer is going into aspects that what can India do to attain a great mitigation and adaptation against the climate change measures. So that we will discuss it in post prelims too, because that is an important topic and no one misses that topic too. So we will discuss it in detail post prelims. And JNK election, one article 2 is also there, which is not related to the topics according to the UPSC, so we will just ignore it. So these all are the important articles. So thank you very much for discussing.